Great. Well, thank you everyone for dialing in today. My name is Ian Lloyd with Matchmove, along with a host of very distinguished gentlemen here with broad backgrounds in Singapore and Singapore startups. Today, we're looking at managing scale, adapting your business to the new normal and mitigating the impact of closed borders. Now, especially in a time of COVID where everything is up in the air, we're looking at how do we keep our businesses growing and expanding. And as I was speaking with these gentlemen earlier this week, they were telling me even that in every crisis, there is opportunity. Now, scale is different for everyone, different phases of our businesses. And how do we continue to grow our businesses, our startups, no matter how small, how big, how do we continue to grow them during this time of such great challenges? Now, each of these gentlemen here have been with and launched many of their own businesses. They've worked on helping companies just like yours grow even more. And they also offer some great resources for SMEs in Singapore and across ASEAN that can help supercharge your business, help you scale, break past that scaling barrier, and break and move over those closed borders. Now, as I said, my name's Ian Lloyd. I'm with a company here in Singapore called Matchmove. We do virtual cards as a service, virtual accounts as a service, basically banking as a service. And that's actually my title. With us, we have Amar Abul from Matchmove as well, Adam Lok from Osam, Juhal Chan from Just Login, and Janus Lim from Finap. What I'd like to do is ask each of them to give a little bit of introduction of themselves, where they're doing, what they're doing, where they've come from. And we'll open up to a couple of questions for them as well. So, Amar, if you don't mind, could you kick us off?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Ian, thank you so much, and warm welcome to the panelists as well for joining this session. So my name is Amar Abrol, Chief Commercial Officer at Matchmove. Been with the company since January this year, and have known Matchmove for a number of years prior, when Matchmove pivoted from a gaming company or game content company to a fintech and a payment company. Prior to joining Matchmove, I was based in India, and I was the Chief Executive Officer for AirAsia India. Had an opportunity to run an airline for a couple of years. Prior to that, CEO for Big Pay, based out of Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And a big part of my career at American Express, about 18 years in various roles and capacities across the region, largely centered in Asia, but managed to do business in Europe and Latin America as well. And a pleasure joining the panel.
Adam?
Hi, yep, I'm Adam, and I've been Osam for more than 2 years now. Previously was leading the client success team before heading the partnerships team right now, and has been in this industry for about 5 years, previously from a traditional firm. But because, Osam has been really ambitious, and I feel that this industry needs a disruption, and therefore I joined Osam. And Osam is basically a chat-based solution with over 4,000 clients now in Singapore, Hong Kong, and the UK. And we basically provide corporate secretarial services, accounting, tax, payroll, immigration. And our focus is a lot on automation, right? That allows services to be provided at reasonable cost. And our platform actually allows our clients to access important information and documents. And of course, be rid of important deadlines and communicate with us, right? Any time of the day. And of course, we've been partnering with OCBC to provide a first-in-market, one-day incorporation and bank account opening. And it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Adam. Juhal?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us this afternoon for this panel discussion. My name is Chahal. I'm the COO of Just Login. Just Login is a 20-year-old startup. I'm not sure if there's such a thing. But I've been involved in the business for about the last 5 years. Personally, my history has always been in up-and-coming companies. I was one of the first few pioneers of Salesforce out in Asia, so I've seen how a software company like Salesforce grew very quickly. And myself, I've been involved with 2 or 3 other startups, and as well as grew venture-funded startups as well. So my experience has a lot to do in the software industry over the last 20 years. And I hope today I'll be able to share some insights and anything on especially in areas of HR tech that which Just Login is been focusing on for the last 20 years. Okay, thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Juhal. And last but not least, Janus.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me here today. I founded Finet Group about 8 years ago. We are a credit advisory firm. We work with more than 200 funders locally and internationally to provide credit solutions for businesses of all sizes here and within the region. So we have been busy helping SMEs in terms of obtaining financing to sustain through this COVID period. And we also have seen an increase in inquiries from the region as well. Happy to be here and happy to share more information on financing in general and the ways to navigate the landscape.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. So what I'd like to ask now is move a bit into that question and answer sections here, because I actually really like to understand a bit more around how you've built your businesses and how you can help SMEs scale today. So Janice, if you don't mind, I'll start with you. So
Sure.
In recent pre-COVID research, by the way, pre-COVID, 8 out of 10 SMEs do not qualify for traditional bank loan, and about 1 out of 3 cite lack of capital as hampering growth. It's only gotten tougher. How do SMEs close this capital gap today?
Right. Okay. Well, first and foremost, SMEs mostly struggle with managing their cash flow and working capital effectively. Many owners usually possess industry knowledge, but often insufficient financial knowledge. And early in the startup phase, they do not have a full-time finance function to advise or manage this. So typically, the only finance function for SMEs is from their outsourced accounting firm that does their accounts annually. So when SMEs face cash flow issues, they in turn become reactive, and then that's where they turn to banks and lenders for financing. So here, when you apply for financing, the process is complicated, unclear, and often time-consuming. And SMEs, from experience, they also tend to apply only when they face, for example, cash flow issues, and not when they were financially more sound. And this is mainly probably because SMEs may perhaps be more conservative, and they also lack knowledge in this area. So as a result, the borrower may fail the criteria for approval, and they also won't be informed of the reasons why. I think the gap here is that the lack of information pertaining to successfully obtaining financing exists due to confidentiality. So naturally, lenders do not review their processes and credit criteria, given that they're in the business of financing qualified borrowers. So hence, they obviously do not advise unqualified borrowers on how to qualify. And secondly, many SMEs also wrongly assume that they are qualified for financing, given how extensively lenders market loans to them. So lenders do not pre-qualify potential borrowers when they are marketing, and they will only be able to ascertain when they access the financial documents. But this marketing approach sometimes causes many SMEs to wrongly assume that they are pre-qualified. So when an SME applies and gets rejected by the lender, not only are they not informed the reasons why, but they may be blacklisted from the lender for the next 3 to 6 months. So in short, not only does the SME not get the money they need, but they also effectively cut off their financing options for the next 3 to 6 months if they repeat this across different lenders. So to share a bit more, there are many credit factors that determine whether an SME can obtain financing. For example, a common one would be ensuring company directors have good credit bureau scores. So here, everyone has a credit bureau score, and this report can be obtained online from Credit Bureau Singapore. So you can sign in with your SingPass, pay $5, and you can obtain your report. And spending some time to understand how to strengthen your credit score is very vital in terms of business financing. There is a connection. Because a lender can reject an application if the directors fail their credit bureau, even though their company is financially viable to borrow. Now, this is a little known fact, and it's also a key factor why SMEs don't qualify for financing. And the big issue is that most SMEs have no idea that the director's personal credit bureau scores would impact their business in qualifying for business financing. And why this is so is because, for example, the banks, as a new to bank applicant, the banks have no visibility on your repayment history, nor your repayment habits, and they have no visibility on the company as well, prior to assessing. So they will often assess the directors or the guarantors prepayment history via their credit bureau score. And character assessment is a vital key factor in assessing that. So if you feel that, then even if the company is qualified, the application often is declined. Furthermore, it's also important to demonstrate good repayment ability. So having 4 to 5 digits monthly ending bank balances to avoid having return checks issued due to insufficient balance, and proof of future cash flow from new contracts are key credit factors that SMEs can look into to strengthen their application chances.
Very good, thank you. Now, that actually leads us into a very good question. And Adam, I'd like to ask you, when you're starting up a new business, usually the last thing future entrepreneurs think about is opening a bank account and incorporating the business. And this is vital for closing that capital gap. You need that history and that record. That is especially important for cross-border businesses. Anyone who's, say, trying to do businesses across borders, or even opening up subsidiaries, they can better access local markets. What should startups be thinking about when they first start laying that foundation for scale later?
Well, it's interesting to ask this because I think, given what's happening, actually entrepreneurs sometimes do know what they should do already, because there's so many, resources available online. But I think, when entrepreneurs begin, they tend to set up in their own home country, right, or wherever they are from, which makes sense because of the familiarity of the market. But of course, when they want to scale, it is important to definitely plan ahead, right? That might sound really simple, but a lot of times, people fail to plan actually. And I think during this planning, it's important to, look for a place, a country, a jurisdiction where essentially it's the hub of a region that they're going into, right? Or they're targeting, for example. And it's also important that, this particular jurisdiction or country is very supportive of new foreign-owned businesses, because there are certain countries that are less open as compared to Singapore, for example, which is a very good example in this case. And I believe that having the right support is very important as well. And support in this case could be technology, right, or having the right team. And of course, given what's happening around the world, and us going through a video and not face to face, is being able to get everything done online, right, would definitely help in scaling. Which is why, again, I believe technology in this case is really important. To give an example, right, for us, we have a client whom we actually supported from day one, their incorporation of the company, and they were all not based in Singapore, right? They're based outside of Singapore, and we supported them all through their Series A funding, right, which is somewhere in the 8-digit region. So we kind of helped them with their corporate secretarial work, their accounting, tax, payroll, and even work pass application to kind of allow them to relocate to Singapore, right? And in fact, they were actually recently named as the one of LinkedIn top 10 Singapore startups. So I think what's really important here is, when you plan to scale, right, it's about working with the right people, right? And how we help, companies actually do it remotely, or, any other resources that helps them do it remotely, especially in such circumstances. I think it's really important. And it's really easy also, right? I mean, imagine having to travel, right? To fly to somewhere, some of the countries, when obviously there are restrictions, or having to visit a lawyer, which may not be open in such cases, to get certain documents certified. And I think in this kind of cases, then it's really important to kind of embrace technology. So I think, all in all, to kind of summarize, to scale, I think you need to plan, to embrace technology, to embrace, what could be upcoming, what's new. And yeah, that's just my point of view. Thanks.
That's great, Adam. Thank you. Planning for success, not planning to fail, but planning for success and working with the right people is actually really important. And again, good segue. Chuhao, I'd like to ask, we all know that running a business can be very rewarding, but it can also be very, very stressful. And on average, Singaporeans took about 3 days of sick leave for mental health in 2018. So what should entrepreneurs be doing to look after their employees' total well-being, especially in challenging times like this?
Um, my take of this challenging time is, I mean, when the COVID first hit, I think we will first looking at the situation, and there's a lot of nervousness, all right, not in terms of just an employer, but in terms of employees especially. Uh, Most of the employees, when we speak to them on a one-on-one basis, one of the first two things I've looked at is that they see companies around them closing down, all right, people losing their jobs. And the first thing, especially if depending on what kind of business you're in, and if one of the key things at these times is that you have to first thing is to kind of address the fears that these employees have. And I think one of the few things that came out was like, oh, will I lose my job? Is there security? Is there, will the company be okay? These are all at the top of the employee's mind. And I think the point here is that at this point in time, especially when you are an entrepreneur, especially when you're a business owner, I think regardless how the market situation is, the only thing that will save your company at this stage or get you navigate out through the company at this kind of crisis at this kind of point in time is actually your employees. If you think about it, right? These were the people that will help you navigate. They will be the one who needs to be able to work harder, right? So for us, the thought is that when the times like this happen, your employees, you need to look in the employees to see how to get out of this situation, how to work harder. The best ideas come out from these guys. So which brings me to the real point here, right? The real point here is that especially when it comes to a crisis like that, you have to pay more attention to the welfare of employees than ever. And when we talk about welfare of employees, it's not just about providing benefits, paying their salaries, giving sure they have a job. It's also about the fact that during this time, a lot of people tend to ignore the fact that there's always this the mental wellness about it, right? The financial wellness of their companies, of the employees, even the physical wellness of employees. In this kind of time, it's like we want everybody to work harder, but do they care that the fact that by working harder, by making everybody's working from home, you burn them out much faster? So these are all uh, 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 things that employees have to look at, especially when it comes to, especially at this time. It's not about micromanaging them, making sure that they do this, they do that, they cover as much as possible. It's trying to get the best ideas of you guys, but get keep the best team that you have. And the main point here is how to engage them. Studies have shown that a more engaged workforce will increase your productivity. And in this kind of situation, the way I see when we first hit the crisis, what I'm saying is that business is bad, you just have to work harder, right? For every, instead in the past, maybe you have 3 opportunities you need to work on, but times are bad, work on 6 opportunities, work on 6 deals. You just need to work, everyone needs to work just a little harder just to close off the gap from, right? And it's possible. We have seen our end, everyone was doubling down, everyone was doing more. But the main thing, it comes from a few things. You have to listen to your employee. So the number one approach is that you have to listen. We internally in Just Login, we do one-on-ones. We do one-on-one with, or I do personally do one-on-one with all our employees. Every few months, we'll do a one-on-one with them, see how they're doing, how the employees are engaged, whether or not they feel that they're motivated, whether they're burnt out. So you have to listen to them. The next thing is to acknowledge and relate to them, because a lot of times they will find that the worst fears, they are worried about the jobs. You have to assure them, to give them confidence. Look, we're in this team together to get out of this situation together. Everyone just have to do their part, right? And as well as knowledge whether they have issues at home, if anything you can look out for. Do they need to be working more flexibly? Do they need more time out? Do they need a better hardware? Do they need a better monitor? These are the things that employees need to take the extra step in this kind of times to even dig deeper into their employee, the work base, to find out exactly what will make them more engaged and more motivated and more loyal to you. And you also have to be understanding, right? I mean, if they have a challenge, they got a spouse who lost out jobs, extend a hand. If you can, help them out. At this point in time, buying that favor from them, giving them, showing that just a little assistance at this time will buy a lot of loyalty for years down the road, right? So that is a few things you can start looking at. Of course, they need you to be genuine. If you know that they're doing this, if you think that you're doing this just because there's some benefit you're trying to get from them, they won't stay. And the last two things is to trust them, right? Trust them that they will do the best for you. If you have been looking after them, the employees will look after you. And the best thing is when everyone's stressed out, burned out, working harder, nothing beats the best and the cheapest way to get a motivated workforce is just to show a little appreciation. Announce to a team, everyone's done well, we're done well, let's celebrate, let's go for a nice dinner out. These are small little things that actually doesn't cost a lot for a lot of employees to do, but it's something that a lot of employees tend to ignore, right? It's like, okay, I don't want to engage, because I understand being an employer, being an entrepreneur, you go through many stuffs over the years, but you got to a point where you get a bit of fatigue. You find that, I don't need to engage a newbie who came in, but you'll be amazed that by just taking the extra step of knowing who is working for you, and how they're feeling and what their welfare is like, will do a lot of miracle for your business. And especially times like this, you need a very cohesive team. So I can't emphasize more for the fact that the only way to get through this situation, to get a more productive workforce from out of your team, is just to engage with them more. It's as simple as that. That's all.
Very good. Thank you. I think it's very insightful. We had a comment that in the chat box here as well, that employees matter as all are in the same boat, and I think we can all agree with that. It's a great perspective. I'd like to change the tack just a little bit and ask Amar, as we look at ASEAN as a hub for cross-border business, so much business flowing between the countries, between Singapore and Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines, and so on. Especially in the import and export world, making cost-effective and on-time payments worldwide is very important. I believe there's almost, you quoted me, there's about $100 billion flowing just between the borders within Singapore at least. So what should SMEs be thinking about as they plan for their international growth and their international payments?
Sure, interesting question. And I mean, first of all, I'd like to echo all of the sentiments that the panelists have mentioned, right? Especially Cha, who mentioned about employee well-being, planning ahead. Adam mentioned planning ahead. And I think another key ingredient is as you double down, as you work harder, you got to watch your costs as well, right? And that's a key ingredient. Times are tough, and every penny that you save is going to help and potentially goes back to helping the employees in some way, shape, or form, right? So it's the responsibility of whether it's the owner, the CEO, the CFO, all of us, in fact, to watch our costs, right? And that's where we double down and we focused on it in MatchMove, and we realized that from Singapore itself, the total imports in the country is a staggering $360 billion worth of imports, right? Which is 99 or 100% of that is going overseas to, of course, ASEAN markets, and certainly to the rest of the world as well. And we started, we took on a challenge to build a platform to help SMEs to save on their remittances and save on the cost of sending the funds abroad. What we realized was that in a number of occasions, while the transactions are large, right, the cost of sending the remittances is largely hidden somewhere deep down in the P&L. And as a CEO, while you're focused on the big ticket items, you're working on the deals, you're trying to make sure that the business is ticking and it's moving fast enough. You tend to forget about some of these smaller opportunities, and they do add up, right? $360 billion is a huge number. And I think that's what we did. We focused on that. We built a platform in 100 days flat, which enables banks, or rather for SMEs, to save anywhere between 50 to 71% of the transaction cost, and certainly a lot more in terms of the FX markup that the banks charge to the SMEs.
Great, thank you. You know, a recurring theme through all of these questions and all these responses has been that there is a lot happening. Business owners, CEOs, entrepreneurs, startups, what have you, every stage of their business, there's so much going on, and yet there's not nearly enough people to do it all. For example, Janus was mentioning how we need to begin setting the foundations for your future capital growth from almost from day one. Adam was mentioning you need to plan for success. You need to build up for it. Chuhao was saying how we need to engage our employees and keep them alive, keep them active and feeling like they are valued and considered worthwhile, right? The key pieces of the team. Well, Amar was mentioning that sometimes the costs of running our business, we don't know what they are because they're so deeply buried underneath the bottom line. You almost need to have full-time CFOs on board to handle your debt and your equity plans, to handle your cost bases. You need full-time human resources, a chief people officer, and also chief accountants. But oftentimes, and it's just you starting up your own business or a smaller or medium business, you don't have those dedicated teams. So actually, I would like to ask each of you, what advice you could offer around what have you done in your own roles, in your own jobs, to help others build up that expertise, that expert advice. So I'll start with Janus, if you don't mind. Could you share how you've helped SMEs with expert advice in the strategy and growth planning and how to bring that strategy to life? And I know that plays well into the debt and the equity stories that you talked about.
Sure. Well, having worked in the financial industry, we are able to present the borrower's information in a way that assists lenders in their credit approval process. So we consult and work with both borrowers and funders to deliver what they seek. So basically, companies need funding and lenders are looking for qualified borrowers. So in this case, we often serve as the first finance hire for SMEs as a result of implementing sound financial practices for them to qualify for financing in accordance to sometimes rigid credit parameters that lenders may have. We know that many SMEs lack a financial direction when they first start their business, as they tend to be more sales driven at the start. A minimal preparation period to help SMEs become qualified may sometimes require in advance 3 to 6 months in order to implement. So through our solutions, we have helped numerous SMEs to grow their revenues 2 to 3 times in a shorter period. We have increased gross profits and also increased the sales to big buyers through a clear working capital strategy. So without clarity on cash flow and working capital, most businesses live on blind faith that this will always be smooth. And I think COVID has greatly accelerated, this instance, this aspect in terms of, looking at your cash flow management, looking at your receivables, because any business is susceptible to be tremendously affected by COVID. The situation, and your buyers would delay your payments, and then how do you manage the business? So these are all things that maybe were not so evident pre-COVID for most businesses. They just do their sales and stuff like that. But now it's clear that if big companies can go under, that everyone is susceptible. And credit management in terms of working capital, or even doing credit assessment on your new buyers, these are things that more SMEs are now more open to. They are more aware of. And these are things that have become largely very important as they go forward. So when we work with our clients, they can focus on their core expertise while we manage the entire financing cycle. We liaise with the lenders on their behalf, and we secure the working capital and growth capital that they need. So, throughout this long-term engagement, we gain more knowledge of what they do, what are their objectives and their growth plans, and then we work backwards from their goals to ensure that they remain qualified in order to secure funding at each stage of their growth. Lastly, we also partner with key organizations and firms from other industries to explore how SMEs can further benefit from a clearer understanding of the credit process. So in summary, we effectively bridge what both clients and funders require.
That's a great story around what you've done, Janus, with Finac, and how you've been able to help people kind of reimagine how they actually need to handle their business to mature the business for that scaling area. Chuhao, I'd like to ask, when you're finding and keeping that right talent in an organization, it's not only good for business, but it's also good for the bottom line. Replacing an employee, the last number I heard, maybe a bit old, was about $11,000 to replace an employee. So how have you helped entrepreneurs find and retain the right people for their business to enable scaling in the Just Login family?
Okay, so I think first thing first, right? You have to go back to understand the workforce of today, right? If you look at everyone in the panel, everyone in this room, I suspect is entrepreneurs or business owners. But I think one of the key challenges I hear from business people is that it's very difficult to find people. Dealing employees is a challenge and so forth, right? But I think I want to kind of like rewind everybody back a little bit and kind of understand first of all, look at the landscape of the workforce today, right? The internet, this new economy has changed a lot of things, right? People now are making living out of almost anything out there. You could be easily a Grab driver and take home $3,000 to $4,000 a month. You could be delivering food and getting a couple $1,000s a month. They can be using Instagram. You can be writing a blog, influencer. These are the new age gig workforce that's coming into the market. So when they work for you, they're not comparing against your job versus company's B job. They're comparing a possibility is like, you know what, I could work for you or I could be a blogger, right? And make the same amount of money. So if you're not gonna give me something worth my time, I'd probably be better off being a Grab driver, right? So when you start thinking along this perspective, you'll find that that's one reason why maybe you find that, you know what, my salaries are not as competitive or my things are not as competitive. This landscape that I can't find people that I used to be able to find maybe 20 years ago. So things have changed. So the workforce now is no longer the same. They're more dynamic. They're very connected. They find business not from within Singapore. They find business. They do business elsewhere. They work on a influencer. They could be getting advertiser revenue from outside of Singapore and so forth. So if you think about it, you're doing the global economy now, right? So one thing that you have to, because of this, you have to realize one key thing is that people don't really work for money as much nowadays. Right? Yes, there's a basic thing. You basically, as long as you pay for my base salary, I'm happy. What people want to work for nowadays is they want to work for companies that give them a sense of purpose, right? I want to work for Tesla because I think the vision is great. Right? I want to work for Apple because the vision is such a way that it makes everybody happy, connected, so forth. So I want to work for Google because it helps people search things. So if you think about it, people want to work for companies with a vision, and with a bigger purpose. They don't want to work for a company just because they want to have something to pay, pay the basic salary nowadays. So if the first thing that you have to articulate to your team, for your people as well, is that your business is not just about making money. The moment you start having that sense, I'm not making enough money this month, therefore I can't give you this benefit, you'll find that your employees won't stay. You will not be able to keep employees because after a while they'll feel that, you know what, you're just trading my time for your money. But they will stay with you, you retain them if they give them a bigger purpose. We're here trying to solve a bigger vision that you have, right? So people want to work for leaders. They don't really want to work for and people visions. They don't really want to work for a company just talking about making the basic money. So think of that, have a bigger vision, share them with employees, and you'll find that you'll be able to retain them, right? So some of the big tangible takeaways that I tend to like to give advice that I personally apply to our business is that first, if you can automate everything, automate first. Invest now for example, the government is giving a lot of grants. Digitize as much as you can. If you need to outsource, if you can outsource it first. You got Adam, Janus, all these who can able to provide all these services that you don't need to own yourself. You don't need to hire people. So hire only when necessary. So you are able to keep your team very lean, right? Then you're able to concentrate the value of business to a few people. And that allows you to hire only the A players. So by being A players, that way you'll find that what they can do is probably easily more 2 or 3 times what a B or C player can do with the same amount of salary. So think of it, concentrate the value of your business on a few fewer employees, and you'll find that the impact is actually much bigger. And lastly, next thing point is that you do not need to be restricted by geography. You do not need to be hiring within Singapore. This whole situation where everyone's working from home, you find that what's possible is that you can actually have a virtual workforce. You can have people from Malaysia, you can have people from Indonesia, all the way out to Russia and so forth if necessary. Talents of the world, you're no longer limited by the talents that you have in country or within your geography. So these are all facts. And the last but not least is to just to trust them and don't micromanage these guys. Because if you have done your job well, you've hired the A players, you don't need to micromanage them. They will do it for you. Just trust them to do the job and let them flourish. And before you know it, your business will definitely come to a point where you'll find that it's so much easier to run a business and you're able to navigate through these kind of things, this kind of situation much better. So I think in summary, retaining employees is not just about the welfare now, it's a whole series of things. Making sure you have the right people is probably the most important thing you have to do.
Very good, thank you. You mentioned there to digitize as much as you can, automate as much as you can. And actually that's a space, and I saw Adam nodding his head, that's a space that Adam plays in particular now. Adam was telling me earlier about cloud accounting, and that's a pretty new term for me. So what does that mean? And how do you help SMEs close that expert advice gap when it comes to accounting and everything related to companies?
Well, cloud accounting actually, it pretty much means on a very basic term that, you can view or you can do your accounting on the go, right? Anytime, anywhere, and, you're not limited to geographical locations like Chua just mentioned earlier also. So being able to, access your financials, view past records, invoices, and, even upload documents, right? Or, screenshots from your phone. So, and you can just upload all this onto our platform, right? And it actually help to, reduce the amount of paperwork and even storage space on your phone because you just upload and just delete it. And how we bridge that gap is that, so with this, right, I think what our clients can do is they actually do save a lot of time and effort. So we have clients in the past where, I think they were pretty used to how it was in the past, and they bring files and files of their invoices to us, and then, oh, hey, this is what you do, and then, just help me do it. And we kind of, have to educate them a bit, on how to, how you can upload this yourself onto our platform. And, you basically have to keep coming down to us, sending us, giving us your files, right? And I think that is something that they kind of appreciate, right? And that also kind of frees our time as well, right? Like what Charles said also, that because we kind of automate this and make this more seamless, right? It allows our accountants to actually, not do the very mundane menial task, and then actually allows them to provide expert advisory to our clients, rather than, hey, let me spend my time doing data entry, right? Which is not what I think accountants should do, right? They should be, giving advices to our clients, telling them, what you can do, teaching them about what they're doing with their accounts, right? And I think with that also, we have kind of integrated, Xero is something we use as well on our platform. We kind of integrated Xero as well. And so clients not just, they don't have to switch between platforms, right? They can just use our platform and also, have Xero on our platform as well. And, it's not saying that, hey, you cannot visit us, you cannot call us, or you cannot email us. It's just saying that, we just have one more platform for you to communicate with us. And this kind of streamlines the whole process flow and allows our accountant to, deliver higher value services to our clients, and yet constantly, keep costs low, right? And especially at a time like this, I think this whole cloud accounting will actually help save, time, effort, and money, for our clients and for us. So yeah, that's what it's all about.
Great, thank you. you mentioned there that you should be spending more time giving that kind of expert advice on how to do accounting. And so, Amar, I know we spoke earlier. You said that you very few SMEs have time to watch for real-time foreign exchange rates and the plan for their future domestic and cross-border payments. And you recently launched Remit Send from Matchmove. So, how does that help SMEs better manage their payments?
So like I mentioned earlier, right, a very significant portion of all purchasing in Singapore, right, from a B2B perspective is imports. And the invoices have to be paid 99% of the time overseas. And what we found was that, yes, there's been a plethora of change in the way remittances are done from the days about 4 or 5 years ago, where the bank was the only channel to send remittances. And I think a number of fintechs came up and sort of took that space, which was largely meant for consumer remittances, whether it be blue collar workers or white collar workers or C2C, consumer to consumer businesses. Um, we've been in remittances for the past 4 or 5 years as well. We have a certain portion of that market as well. But very quickly we realized at the beginning of the year, especially when COVID started happening, right, that there is a significant opportunity from our perspective, from a new line of business. But more importantly, there is a significant opportunity to help SMEs understand, right, what does it entail and how much are they paying for a transaction, and B, then provide a seamless service which allows them to reduce the cost in. Any CFO, any CEO is anyways watching cost, but as we're going through this phase in the new age and the new normal, there's obviously got to be, there is a lot more focus on cost, right? And that's what an area that we figured, right, that we could really help drive down costs which are largely hidden from a remittance perspective. So while literally 90% of your invoicing is done overseas, but the knowledge about that function and how much does it cost you was relatively unknown, right? And that's what we stumbled upon. And we said, let's compare it first internally for what are we paying as Matchmove. And we realized, we were paying close to about 70-80% higher than what we would have based on the new rails that we've developed. And that journey, that realization led to the creation of RemitSend. And now we are out with partners, right, trying to spread that service to as many SMEs as possible for them to be able to avail this cost saving and yet remain in control. Just as Adam again mentioned, remain in control from a cloud perspective, from a mobile perspective, approve transactions on the fly, record your savings, and basically leverage this new service that is focused completely on B2B rather than on the consumer space.
Very good, thank you. So I'm going to move into the kind of final stage here, as I know we're running a bit close to the 5:30 mark. And I want to ask each of you the same question, so I'll ask it now. So each of your businesses are SMEs too. You get the challenge of growth and scale, facing startups and established businesses alike. I'd like to ask you, what are some suggestions that you can share on thinking differently and doing differently to achieve scale in this next normal? And we'll start with you, Jen.
Right. I think it's important to retain your talent where possible, to cut costs and conserve cash from non-essential activities, to go leaner. And I think this is from our experience with many businesses that we speak to. This is the perfect time to pivot the business, to experiment and test quickly how your business model can change to serve customers in a better way. We also think it's also a great time to increase and to improve on digital marketing approaches, and also to explore potential partnerships with other firms which you may not have considered prior, to explore and achieve new revenue streams and to reach out to more customers. And this has happened to us because, due to COVID and everyone being home and available, we actually managed to expand our partnership reach. We managed to work with new parties whom we previously have not considered, to explore new ways to communicate the message of what we do, what's the value that it brings, and how it can help the business overall. And I think overall, when we talk about digitization and everything, and I hear from all you guys, I think the key thing is that this period has made many entrepreneurs sit up and say, you know what, we can't just keep doing the same thing because there's no same thing anymore that used to work. And it's important to look at different approaches. It doesn't matter if we're a new business or we're a heritage business, everyone has been hard reset, and then whoever can adapt fastest will survive and then grow from there. So having said that, and we also believe that the net effect of the pandemic will not end at accelerating digitalization, such as e-commerce adoption. So there's a need to, embrace some scenario planning, anticipating the changes in your industry. Talk to your customers. I think that's like the most important thing. You can do everything you want, but you need to speak to your customers. Ask them, what can we do to innovate, to improve, to serve you better? How can we reach out to more customers? Speak to them. I think that's the most important. And then in terms of technology, how can you deploy the right type of technology, the right type of automation in ways that would actually not just help the business, but actually differentiate, your offerings from other providers, other competitors, and how can your organization be the first to access new growth opportunities by leveraging on various support schemes that the government has come out. A lot of times, a lot of people are time strapped and then, only focusing on their sales. Now, in terms of collection, in terms of saving money on remittances, in terms of moving your accounting to cloud and, spending more time on revenue generating activities, I think these are key things that businesses should look into.
Great, thank you, Janus. And Adam, same question.
Yep. Well, I totally agree with what Janus just said, and you kind of just stole the words out of my mouth. But I'm just gonna, re-emphasize on some points, right? I think, in my personal opinion, right, a startup will first have to be resilient, right? So Janus mentioned about, a lot about being agile, about testing the environment, and having thought that, maybe pre-pandemic, pre-crisis, you want to scale in one way, but then, during and after the crisis, things would have changed, right? And so being agile is very important after that, right? First being resilient, and after that being agile in pivoting depending on the different scenarios. Because, the next normal could be very different from this normal and the subsequent normals, right? So depending on the situation, the scenario, I think it's very important to know how you can, pivot and maybe rethink the services that you provide, how you do it and how you engage your clients, as Janus has just mentioned also. So I think those are really important, and also working with the right resources. I hear a lot about retaining your employees, and I think resources is not just about embracing new technologies, right? It's not about technology; it's about human resources as well. And I totally agree with that. Having the right resources and partners was mentioned earlier as well. I think that's also very important. So, this normal, the next normal, subsequent normals will be very different. And I think, how we can learn from it is, just imagine, someone in the previous global financial crisis thinking, how should I prepare, for the next crisis, but nobody knows what's going to be. So we can kind of put ourselves in those shoes and, look back, right, between now and then, what has changed, who has survived those changes, and how can we, follow that and, maybe not just, I need to do A and B, but how the thought process behind it, how did it go? And then I think with that, people will be more prepared, to kind of achieve scale in the next normal, subsequent normals. And yeah, that's just my point of view.
Great, thank you. And Juhao?
Thank you. I think there's nothing much to say after Adam and Janus. But I think, okay, so my take is similar in that sense, right? I think a few points were brought out that I thought worth really iterating. One of it is that the key thing here is, first thing is to look at the internal processes. I think during times when times are good, a lot of people are running ahead with business. They have no time to reevaluate their internal processes, your existing business. So when we for us, my take is the first thing to look at your whole business flow, Is there any processes that are redundant? Is there anything you can streamline? Is there anything you can automate? This is the best time to do it. When the market's a bit quiet, this employees have all the time to evaluate internally, streamline internal processes, cut down the cost. Do we need a big office? Do we need all these? This is the best time to evaluate these stuff, right? Because you don't have customers hugging you, hounding you as much, or you don't have that many opportunities after. But so once you have streamlined that, the next thing to look at is focus on your existing customers. That's my take, right? You have an existing pool of customers. Retaining customers is a much more is more in terms of ROI. It's actually much higher than trying to pursue new business. Go back to your old customers, establish the relationship, and find to see how you can help them at this stage. For my take is this is the time where you actually try to buy favors. You provide empathy to your customers, see how you can help them up. They'll remember it. And when the times are good again and when they've recovered, they'll remember the favor that you give them, you help them during these times. They will come back and hopefully they'll return you the favor to help you with your business growth. So retaining your customers at this point in time is probably something that I'll encourage all companies to do. Look at your customers. If they need maybe instead of 30 days of payment terms, 60 days, give them an edge, help them out a little bit. I think it'll go a long way when the market turns around, right? So these are two things. Next thing to look at is once you have your internal processes nailed down, your customers all settled in, partnerships. I think Adam and Janus mentioned a little bit about partnerships. I can emphasize more. This is a time when you have to reach out to more partners, work out with other companies, see if you could cross-share your customer base and talk about new opportunities in the future. What are areas you can work together? Because I think in this day and age, there's no really clear competitors. Everyone's what do you call it, co-competition competitors, they're like both cooperating and competing at the same time. So nothing to be afraid. It's worthwhile going out, establish more partnerships, and this is the time where you look into potentially mergers, acquisitions, partnerships, whichever that's necessary to prepare yourself when the market turns around, because the market will turn around. It just matter when. And the main thing here is to prepare when is that going to happen, and when you make sure you're ready for it. And the last point that I probably will focus on is when you decided, let's say you want to pivot, it's about focus. In times like this, times are bad. The only thing that will get you out of this crisis is focus, pure focus. Focus on an area that that you strongly believe in will bring you to focus on that area, and just put all the other projects on hold, put everything else on hold, just do one thing and do it really, really well. So as I always like to repeat my team, if it's a maybe, it's a no. Say no to more things than you would ever say, and just focus on the thing that you are very sure will be working, because this is not a time where you need to fool around with fancy projects that you do not know if will get you anywhere. So this is the only time that you just have to focus, and if you focus hard enough and you keep working at it, I believe we're going to get out of this crisis when the crisis turns around. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Chahal. Amar, I'm going to throw you a different question. It just came in from our panel, from our audience here. How did you scale your human capital and business processes yet manage cost, ability cost considerations, and multiple priorities?
It's a good question. I think we as a company, and certainly as a philosophy of the company as well, right, have relied very, very heavily on partnerships. And I think all of the panelists mentioned partnerships. Our entire business model is predicated on partnerships. So I think what that means is we've managed to enter countries, we've managed to establish businesses in 5 to 6 to 7 locations now, and we've not gone alone and said that we can do everything. Right, whether it's from licensing or whether it's utilizing the services, accounting services, or whether it's establishing an office and so on and so forth, right? We've relied very, very heavily on partnerships, both in terms of creating our business and scaling up our business as well. We are a B2B player, right? And that's what's also allowed us to keep our human costs or capital costs low as well. right? Because we work very closely in solving problems for our partners, our extension partners, and the ultimate consumer. And that allows us to scale up and get to a level without having to have a full-blown, if you may, operation. Internally, we've also, just as everybody else mentioned, we've looked at pretty much every process and digitized, right? We've introduced tools that allow us to work cross-border. We've introduced tools such as Monday.com, etc., which allows us to have that focus that is required to be very, in some cases, very task-oriented, which gets us to the end result faster. We've also invested in terms of new ideas, like I mentioned a couple of occasions, right? But I think more importantly, we've also stepped away from business that was not making sense. I think compared to the previous year, where a large portion of our team would have been in airports and in hotels and in planes, right? We've utilized this opportunity to sort of regroup, rethink, and re-energize the organization to focus on where we really want to be, where the revenues are, where the profit pools are, and certainly bring along the organization in that journey. So I think everything that's been said by all of the panelists is true for us as well, and we've done it the match move way, which we know that it works. And we don't know everything for sure, but we've learned along the way, and we continue to improvise, continue to change as we go along this journey.
Great, thank you. I know we're just running up to 5:30 now, so I just wanted to say thank you to all of our panelists. Today you've heard from Janus from FINAC on how do you manage and intelligently use various financing options from you. Janus and his whole team are ready and willing to have a chat. I know Adam's talked through cloud accounting and how to launch and set up your businesses faster and better, as well as to lay the foundation for success. And that's with OSOM, so definitely give them a shout out when you need the help. I had a lot of great insights from Chuhao from Just Login on how to manage and accelerate with your businesses and manage and accelerate with your people. And of course, Amara looking at the bigger pictures of how to do remittance and manage your costs, the small line item costs that you don't think about and how they add up with the new Remit Send product from MatchMove. I think with that, we have run out of time. I think it's been a fantastic time, and I really appreciate everyone's time here, all the panelists here for your time and your very frank and open discussions today on how you manage scaling your businesses.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you to everyone on the panel and all the attendees as well. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thanks. Thank you. Take care.
All right.